Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about JavaScript. So, first thing you'll want to know is JavaScript is what makes your website move. It's what makes your website come alive. So that's what makes drop-down menus open and close. It's what makes elements affect other elements. It's what makes elements change themselves and change each other, and it's what makes websites able to send server requests. So it's also the middleman between the front and the back end. It would be external scripts would be in a .js file linked in the source attribute of a script element. This is what you guys may have seen um, in your REPLs, or it's written internally, which means it's in between the opening and closing tags of a script element. Um, the second method is not usually used because it allows other people to see your scripts and read them, and people like to keep their code private. So they usually link their scripts from a file that's on the server and not readable by the person inspecting your HTML code. JavaScript can do a ton of things. Um, Today we're going to practice making alerts with JavaScript, which is pretty simple, but JavaScript can also change any CSS property of any element, which is pretty crazy. So it can change their appearance, their size, whether they're showing or not showing, lots of different things. Um, it can add, delete, or move elements, so it can change where they're located in the DOM or the document object model. It can change the contents of the elements, like it can change what a paragraph element says, or it can change what a button says, or it can change um, the contents of a header, etc. It can add, remove, or change element attributes. So if there's an image element, it can change what image is referenced in that element or is shown in that element. It can change the onClick function, which I'll explain in a second. It can change its ID, can change its class. JavaScript can, this is probably the best part of what JavaScript is best used for, is it can execute scripts, or which scripts are pieces of code, when certain events happen. Events would be such as on click, on mouse over, on mouse leave, on key down, on change. Those are events. They usually start with the word on. And then they'd reference the name of a function. So the code basically says, when this event happens, do that thing. And lastly, JavaScript can send server requests. So JavaScript can say, when something happens, send a request to the server. And then it hands off information to the backend. Um, and there's also a ton more stuff that it can do that I haven't mentioned here. JavaScript is syntactically, syntax-wise, a little bit different from Python in a couple of ways. So every line that calls a function or defines a value must end in a semicolon. Instead of indentations showing which lines of code belong to which blocks, JavaScript uses curly brackets. In meme language, we would call them curly boys, and do not use colons. So if you got really sick and tired of checking your indents in Python, you no longer have to do that. Congratulations. It's still wise to put indents in your code to make it more readable, but it will no longer affect how it works. And so instead of indentations, um, JavaScript uses curly brackets to show where certain blocks begin and end. This applies to functions and also conditional statements, and what's something that's called a switch statement, which is kind of like a set of conditional statements. Um, if you are to write a conditional statement, the condition must be surrounded by parentheses. So that'd be like saying if x is greater than 3, the part that says x is greater than 3 has to be in parentheses. And instead of using the def keyword to define a function, JavaScript uses the function keyword. So the blue text is some example code. You would, instead of saying def hello colon, you would say function hello curly bracket, the function statements, and then another curly bracket to show where the function ends. Let me show you guys some examples and the project that we're going to do today. So I'm basically going to have you guys create an element that reacts to being clicked, and the simplest way that we can do that is we'll have it generate an alert. I'll show you guys, I'll create an element really quick and I'll make it generate an alert. An alert is basically just a little window that pops up and it has an OK button on it, and you can't click anything else on the page until you get rid of that alert. So my HTML's on the left, my CSS is in the middle. I'm gonna get rid of that for a second because I'm not gonna use it right now, and I'm gonna switch it to JavaScript. So we see the JavaScript, the script.js file in the middle and the web view on the right. Here's the body of the HTML file. So this is the part where we'll write our HTML elements. I'm going to create a button. It doesn't have to be a button for you though. It can be any element. It could be a header, it could be an image, it could be a paragraph, it could be a link. Any element can react to being clicked on. This button is going to say, click me. And to tell HTML that we want this button to run a JavaScript function when we click on it, we will add an attribute in the opening tag called onClick and set its value to not quotes. When we use event listeners like onClick, the value is not in quotation marks, and that will be the name of a JavaScript function. You can call this function whatever you want, but it has to have two parentheses afterwards that either contains a parameter or nothing if it does not take a parameter, this function. My function is not going to take a parameter, so I'm going to put empty parentheses, and I'm going to call it do stuff. The function is now called do stuff. When I run it, it's not going to do anything because JavaScript doesn't recognize the function called do stuff. So we have to define that function in the .js file. So instead of saying def do stuff colon like we would in Python, we're going to say function do stuff empty parameters curly bracket. And it's going to put the other curly bracket for us. So we just press enter. It will automatically put the curly bracket at the end. And now we can tell it all the things we want it to do when the button is clicked. One of the things I want it to do is create an alert. Inside the quotation marks and inside the parentheses. Well, inside the parentheses is the value that will be alerted. Um, this should be either a string or a number. But whatever value is there, it will display in the alert box. But the value that I've put here is a string because it's in quotes. And since we're calling a function, this has to end in a semicolon. Now let's run this. Let me click me. It says you clicked me right here. So let's try this on my blog. I'm gonna make my image react to being clicked on. So my image is the element called img. That's this one right here. The whole opening tag is this. It actually doesn't need a closing tag. So this is the image element right here. Image source equals cat blankie. I'm going to add another attribute. The attributes can be in any order. So I'm going to say on click, a new attribute called on click equals do stuff. Oh, wait, no quotes. Do stuff. Don't have to call it do stuff. You can call it, I could say cat clicked. When the cat is clicked, we want to run the function cat clicked because at that point the cat has been clicked. Now we have to define that function so JavaScript knows what that means. Let's get our JavaScript file, put it in here, then we define it. Function cat clicked. Let's tell JavaScript what that means. We want it to alert some value. The value we want it to alert is a string of letters and characters. And we're telling it clicked my kitty. You clicked my kitty. Doesn't happen if we click anything else. That link sends me to Pets in Need. Clicking on the cat alerts you clicked my kitty. I forgot a semicolon. It still worked, but in some cases it might not, so make sure you do that. All right, I'll give you guys a moment to try that out.